Hello! If you like stories like this, subscribe to this channel to not miss new videos. I never imagined my marriage could end over money, especially money we didn't even earn. It was a quiet Tuesday night in March. I was curled up on the couch, a blanket over my legs, half watching some crime drama while Daniel sat in the armchair, scrolling through his phone. Then, suddenly, he went still, his brow furrowed, his lips parted, but no sound came out. "What's wrong?" I asked. His eyes flicked to mine, almost suspicious, like he had to decide whether to tell me. Then he said it. Words that felt too big for our living room. "Emma, we're rich. I mean, really rich. My great-uncle Arthur died, left me everything, over $8 million. I laughed. "You're joking." He turned the screen toward me. An email from a law firm. Official letterhead, legal language I couldn't process fast enough. I scanned it twice, maybe 3 times, before it started to feel real. That night, we opened a bottle of cheap champagne from the fridge. We toasted to our new life, laughing at the absurdity of it all. I went to bed thinking nothing between us could change. After all, we'd been broke together for years, and that had never shaken us. If anything, I thought the money would make things easier. I was so wrong. At first, it was fun. The first month was harmless. We traded our old Toyota for a glossy new SUV. He bought me a necklace I'd admired once in a shop window. We ate at restaurants with wine lists that came in leather-bound books. Daniel was still Daniel, still the man who left sticky notes with dumb jokes on the fridge, still the one who teased me for crying at commercials. But the invitations started rolling in almost immediately. Networking dinners, he called them. "You should come." I did, at first. They were full of people I didn't know how to talk to. Women with hair that shone like glass, men with watches that could pay for our old apartment. The conversations were about real estate investments, art auctions, and vacation homes in places I couldn't find on a map. I tried to keep up, smiling politely, but I always felt like I'd stumbled into someone else's life. But Daniel, though, he thrived. He laughed louder, told bolder stories. His hand on my waist grew lighter, like he didn't need to hold on to me anymore. One Thursday, he said he'd be late, business downtown. I didn't question it. That night, scrolling through Instagram before bed, I saw him in a stranger's story. The angle was bad, the lighting dim, but it was unmistakably Daniel. He was on a rooftop bar, smiling at some inside joke while a woman's manicured hand rested on his chest like it belonged there. When he came home, I asked about it. "Client," he said without missing a beat. "She was just thanking me for closing a deal." His voice was smooth, too smooth. I wanted to believe him, but something in my stomach tightened. After that, he was gone more often. Weekend work trips, late-night meetings. He changed the password on his phone, something he'd never done in all our years together. He started wearing cologne I'd never smelled before, expensive and heavy, the kind that lingered on his shirts. I tried to make sense of it, telling myself the money was overwhelming him, that he was under pressure to fit into this new world. I even told myself maybe I was the one changing, becoming too suspicious. Then, one night, I couldn't sleep. I made tea and, on a whim, checked our joint credit card statement. The charges read like a confession. Luxury hotels in the city, jewelry from boutiques I'd never set foot in, dinner for 2 at the kind of restaurant I'd been begging him to try with someone else. A month later, when he said he had another meeting, I followed him. I parked across from a downtown hotel and waited. An hour later, I saw him in the lobby. He stepped out of the elevator, his hand clasped with a woman so stunning she looked almost unreal. Her laughter echoed across the marble. He kissed her temple as they walked out into the night. I didn't confront him there. I drove home, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the closet we'd shared, the photos of us smiling on vacations we'd scraped and saved for. When he finally came home, smelling faintly of champagne and a perfume I didn't own, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I hope she was worth it, I said. He froze just for a second before his face hardened into something cold. "You're overreacting," he muttered. But we both knew I wasn't. I left the next week. No screaming fights, no bargaining. I took my clothes, my grandmother's ring, and the dog. I didn't want a cent of his fortune. He called a few times at first, then the call stopped. Friends told me he was still throwing parties, still surrounding himself with people who laughed too loudly and stayed too late. 2 years later, I heard he'd burned through most of it. Bad investments, endless spending, people who only stayed as long as the champagne kept flowing. By then, I'd built a smaller, quieter life for myself. My apartment was nothing special, but the air inside felt clean, untainted. The kind of air you can breathe without choking on betrayal. And when I thought of Daniel, I didn't feel anger anymore. Just a dull, distant pity for a man who thought he'd gained the world but lost the only thing that mattered.
I wish I could say I packed my bags and left without a backward glance, but that's not the truth. I stayed just long enough to make sure he'd remember losing me wasn't his only loss. Daniel had gotten sloppy. He wasn't just reckless with our marriage, he was reckless with everything. When the inheritance came, he'd insisted on keeping some of the assets in both our names, for tax purposes, he'd said. I never argued. I'd always trusted him with our finances. But now, I realized, I could use that trust against him. Step 1. Patience. For 2 weeks, I played the perfect wife. I smiled at him over breakfast, kissed him goodbye, asked about his late meetings. He thought I'd moved past it, maybe even forgiven him. But in those 2 weeks, I met with a lawyer, a quiet, calculating woman named Marissa, who listened to my story without flinching. She walked me through the numbers, the accounts, the property deeds. And then she smiled. "Emma, you're about to walk away with half his fortune, maybe more." Step 2. The switch. Daniel had been bragging for months about a new investment, a luxury condo project. What he didn't know was that the holding company he'd set it up through was registered in both our names. With Marissa's help, I transferred my stake into a trust under my sole control. It was perfectly legal, perfectly clean, and perfectly irreversible. While I was at it, I liquidated half the assets in our joint account and moved them into a separate one under my name. No deception, just my legal right as his wife. Step 3. The goodbye. The night I told him, he came home in a sharp suit, smelling like expensive whiskey and someone else's perfume. He poured himself a drink and smirked at me like I was an ornament he owned. "I think we should talk," I said. He sank into the couch. "What now, Emma? Another accusation?" I set a folder on the coffee table. Inside were the documents, proof of the transfers, the trust papers, the finalized divorce petition. His smirk died. "What the hell is this?" "This," I said evenly, "is the end. Of us. Of your safety net. Of your little empire that you thought you could build without me." He flipped through the papers, his face draining of color. "You can't." "I can, and I did. You've got your parties, your women, your penthouses, but you don't have me, and now you don't have half of what you thought you did." the fall. I moved out that night. The next year was a steady stream of rumors. The condo project collapsed. The people who'd called him brother vanished when the money dried up. He sold the SUV, the penthouse, even the watch he used to show off at every party. Sometimes I wondered if he hated me for taking what I did. But then I remembered the look on his face that night, shock, disbelief, the first taste of losing control, and I knew my leaving had done more damage than anything I could have said. My life now. My apartment isn't huge, but it's mine. The trust I control is growing quietly, steadily. I travel when I want. I buy flowers every week just because they make me happy. Every so often, I see Daniel in the news, usually some unflattering mention about debt or lawsuits. He's a shadow of the man I married, but maybe that's fair. He became a stranger long before I stopped loving him. Money didn't ruin us. It just revealed him. And I made sure he paid the bill.
Hello! If you like stories like this, subscribe to this channel to not miss new videos.